Hey heroes, welcome back to Heroes of the Horn. We are dissecting season 1 of the Wheel of Time Amazon series. We're trying to decide, what do we keep, what do we cut from the Eye of the World, how do we combine things. I have Sir Matt with me, and we're going to kind of recap where we've been in episode 1 and 2. We are now in episode 3.
Yeah, so now we're about 20, 30 chapters in, probably, most likely. So episode 1, we're saying, ends around, within that first kind of 10 chapters of the band, as we're calling them. The Trollocs have attacked. They've left Edmonds Field, left the Two Rivers, and they're on their way. Episode 2, we're saying we get to Shadar Logoth, and the attack is going to happen probably in Shadar Logoth that actually splits them up. So that's where that episode is going to end. So now, episode 3, we're saying we have two groups. We're saying we have Rand, Matt, Perrin, and Tom. So that is going to be something that's different. And then in the other group, you have Nynaeve, Egwene, Moraine, and Lan. So not 3 groups like what happens in the books. We're saying it's just going to be 2 groups, and that's what's going to happen in episode 3. I think it's easier, from a directing standpoint, when you only have so much time, you have so much content to get into. That's what we're talking here. What's getting cut? What are they gonna keep? Some stuff may happen later that they bring forward, and so that's where we're at. So I think it's going to be 2 groups. I think it's just easier.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is too. I mean, a lot of what you can do just by having the characters next to each other and having them in a closer bunch, you can do a lot of things. You can develop characters without them even having dialogue. It's just proximity and then also their body language towards another character who is speaking. So you could really develop the dynamics and the personalities between these characters just by keeping them, grouped up together. Now, the big one, our big thing here in this is we don't think by episode 3 that we're going to lose our Gleeman. We don't think so. We think he's going to stick around for a little bit longer, and because we're about at the part where when you get to Four Kings, Tom will stand up and he basically will fight and protect so that Matt and Rand can get away. I think we're going to see some fighting. We're going to see some turmoil in that group, but he's going to live, Sir Matt. I mean, I think it's just too quick. As you said, you've said this to me before. It's too quick for an episode 3 for us to lose a character and for him not to come back until season 2 or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to keep him for a little bit longer. I do think we will still lose him at some point in season 1, but there's a point later in the season where I think it just makes more sense for television to add weight, and we'll get there. We're not there yet, but I do think there's another good point where you could lose Tom. Another huge difference is, with Rand, with these groups splitting up, and again, I think Perrin is going to be with Matt and Rand. I think they're going to cut almost the entire Tinkers Elias arc. Now, there is something huge that comes out of there. I mean, there's a pretty big story point that comes out of that with Perrin, and he gets his yellow eyes, and that leads to some things down the road we don't necessarily need to get into right now if people don't want to be incredibly spoiled. But I think that a lot of that stuff could happen later. I think that you could streamline that later, like maybe he gets that sort of power and does something with it immediately rather than kind of getting it and it's mysterious and what's going on. And because you really need to be pushing forward Rand this season, right? I mean, I think that's your focus. He's your main character. You want to kind of center the story around him, with him being special and having powers. He's kind of, your superhero of season 1, certainly, because he has a pretty big moment at the end. So you really can push a lot of that other stuff out a little bit later. I don't even know that you need to show, something that could have happened in the last episode. Some of that traveling may happen in this episode. I don't know, you might not see Egwene kind of channel here. It may come just later when she goes to train to become an Aes Sedai,
Sure.
some of the stuff that happens at the very beginning of book 2, The Great Hunt. So you may skip out on that a little bit, because then you run into this scenario of, during that same time, you have Nynaeve, right?
Hmm.
Around these chapters, you have Nynaeve learning about how her connection with the boys, right? And Egwene, and how she also has power. So then if you kind of try to cram that all into one episode, it seems like, okay, well, everybody's special. And so I
Yeah.
think that reveal and some of that stuff that will get developed will happen in later episodes. So I think you're going to skip maybe a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and I totally hear what you're saying, which is that if you have a lot of people who are coming into this and they have not read the series, and you just in one episode show that everyone has special abilities, and you show off all of their attributes, that's not really going to work. So you do kind of focus on Rand first, you push him forward, maybe take one of the girls like, Egwene in the books is put forward first. Nynaeve's abilities are there, but they've been very subtle. And we if you're paying really close attention, you'll notice that there's something special about her as well. Same thing with Matt getting the dagger and him getting into some trouble in episode 2 for us. That with Mordith and everything that's gonna be a really scary episode. But going forward, as you say, with Perrin, I think it could be very subtle. You could just see him do things or interact with wolves, or they're nearby, or he has extra senses that you're like, how did he hear that? When no one else can hear something, he hears it first, or he sees something before the other two do, and so on. So that could be more subtle and develop. And if you're new, you're watching that and you're saying, there's something special about that guy. I don't know what it is yet, but there's something special, and we can sort of do that reveal later on in a later episode. I like that a lot. Another thing I'll say too, I think so. In episode 2 for us, being in Shadow Logoth, we have the Shadowspawn, we have Trollocs, we have Vades, and things. Here in episode 3, it's going to be more of a focus on Darkfriends, similar to how it was in the books. So you're going to have some Darkfriends showing up and maybe trying to, Rand is drawing a lot of attention with his heron-marked blade and things like that. So these mysterious travelers, their names have been put forward, their descriptions and things like that. So then Darkfriends, people who look completely normal, innocent, what have you, and next thing you know, you wake up at night and there's someone attacking you with a dagger. So that's going to show, I think, the audience like, whoa, it's not just these big, mean, nasty creatures. It's also just everyday people that look just like our main characters. And that's sort of your episode 3. Like, this is, oh, wow, this is nuts. This is just next level. So I think that'll be kind of what's going on there. But the other group, Nynaeve and Lan and stuff, I think there's just going to be more of that Nynaeve-Lan dynamic. Nynaeve and Moraine not maybe agreeing on stuff, learning more about the Aes Sedai, and maybe Moraine is talking about the other boys and sharing information with the girls about the boys while they're with Tom, and Tom is sharing this whole idea of, don't trust an Aes Sedai, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And if you remember, you go back, and when Moraine, who also is a character that you really kind of, I think she's going to be that, she in a way, she's kind of like, she's your Gandalf, right? You want to, I think, show Moraine as somebody who is really powerful, and then you finish the season by showing, oh, but Rand is another level, right? And so you set your scale with Moraine, and then
sure.
you blow it out of the water with Rand, and I think that's really good. So that's why I think Moraine's abilities will be kind of the focus of season 1 until you get to Rand. But I'm just imagining, there's the moment where Moraine is talking to Nynaeve, and she's talking about, how did you must have had a connection with somebody. Maybe you healed somebody, or maybe you did something. And I just kind of imagine that. I'm imagining that scene, and maybe it's around a campfire at night, and Moraine and Nynaeve are talking, and maybe Egwene, because she's there, is sleeping, and so she's thinking, was it Perrin? And then maybe she's looking at Egwene, who's sleeping, and she's like, oh, it must have been Egwene. Like
Sure.
that's a very good television
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not all the way just sort of like showing off powers or doing. You're subtly mentioning that there's something special about Nynaeve.
Right.
Yeah, and so by episode 3, we're starting to get the idea that these individuals are special and there's more to them. You know, I mean, at this point in the books too, we should mention this is a point where Rand does something extreme, doesn't even know what he does. He becomes sick afterwards. So I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about there. Are we going to see that? Are we not going to see that? I don't know, actually. I think it could just be, and if we do, I think all the characters are going to be really confused by it and just sort of think, maybe, did Rand do that? Did he not do that? Is Moraine, can she intervene from far away? Is someone else around? So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that in episode 3.
Yeah, and one last point here. You know, you and I have talked, you know, off camera here a lot about what are they going to do with the dreams, right? Rand has a lot of dreams throughout this book, and we did an entire episode on the prologue. It's possible that they may just combine a lot of the dream sequences, and I think this would be a good episode to show that, because they're off, they're traveling, you know, like they go to bed at night, right? Rand has a dream which could include a lot of things. I don't think it's going to be as straightforward
Sure.
as it is in the books, where it's like, here's a scene, here's what's going on. I think it's going to be more of, you know, everything's kind of flashing by. That's where I actually think we will get some of the prologue. I think Rand will just be kind of in a dream sequence, you know, everything's going on. You may hear Eliana, right? And you get a little bit of that tease of Luce Theron.
Yeah.
And so I think that Rand will have a lot of dreams, and you're like, okay, something's going on here, and then we'll get to the big kind of climax of this season. So yeah, I'm totally with you. I just how I think they're going to show some of those connections and stuff like that. I don't know if we're going to see like the lightning bolt that does kind of happen around these chapters.
Right.
It may just be Rand having dream sequences.
Yeah, and what would be a subtle thing is that when he wakes up and talks about his dream or whatever, he confides in his friends, and they start to kind of say, well, did this happen? Did that happen? Each of them is kind of adding. And then you realize we saw this with Rand, but the other two boys had the same or a similar dream. Now, that all, what you have to be careful with is, as you said, we brought Luce Theron into the conversation, and that's only if you don't do something in the prologue. If you wanted to wait and stash him away later and sort of do more of just a voice or an echo or more of actually just, bringing his name up through the dream sequence, through another character, through a darker character, and not even talk about him at all. But Moraine mentions him, Tom, he's mentioned in the stories, and he's mentioned in this dream, and then we see him later on. Maybe you could still do that. I don't know. That's going to be really interesting to see how they handle Luce Theron and how that character is woven throughout the entire series. So
yeah, absolutely. So, all right, well, let us know what you guys think. Leave us a comment. What do you think we're going to see at this point by episode 3? Are we going to be further along? Are they going to take a little more time? Just let us know. Leave us a comment. Thank you for watching, and remember that the horn has sounded.